Often we talk about big level design, big open worlds, but how do we think even bigger than that? Hi folks, it's Falcon, and today on gameranx, 10 upcoming games that are bigger than planet Earth. Starting off with number 10, it's Starship Simulator, a really ambitious space exploration sandbox sim. It boldly proclaims it will make a 1-to-1 scale of the Milky Way galaxy. So the game's not just big, it's going to be 100,000 light years big, making 100 to 4 billion stars. Like, the scale is simply mind-bogglingly huge. It may even be bigger than that. The description says the game will include the entire galactic halo region, so explorable space is over 1.7 quadrillion cubic light years, so pretty big, I guess. That's not the only thing the game is boldly doing, because it's clearly all meant to be Star Trek with the serial numbers filed off. The focus of the game seems to be less on universal exploring and more on managing your starship and crew. So you're less exploring a massive galaxy and more just exploring the confines of your ship while the galaxy zooms by outside your window. But they do plan on simulating space anomalies and cosmic events, like the trailer mentioned exoplanets, so there's a lot of ambition there. Can they actually pull it off? I mean, that's going to be a common question for this entire list. All these games are making big promises, but a lot of them don't have a lot to match up yet, even really the ability to. A lot of them are in very early stages, but still. Starship Simulator is for sure one of those games. Got big ideas galore on the Steam page, but the developer doesn't have any other games under their belt, and although they did put a demo out in 2022, they don't have a release date now. So who knows if it'll ever come out, and honestly, if it does come out, who knows if it'll come out anywhere close to what they're saying they want to do right now in the description. If it does, that could be something very interesting, but I'm not getting my hopes up. I'm a bit cynical about these kinds of games. And if you work to maintain a bit of a skeptical attitude, you're never disappointed by them, just pleasantly surprised when they happen and they're good. And number 9 is Light No Fire. Hello Games' highly anticipated follow-up to No Man's Sky is a game that's pretty much guaranteed. I mean, they were able to pull it out and make it happen with No Man's Sky, and eventually filled not all, but most of the promises the pre-release footage for that game made, which honestly, kind of a miracle. A lot of those promises were, at the time, a big stretch for a large developer, and they pulled it off. So, needless to say, expectations are pretty high for this one. Unlike most games on this list, it's set in a fantasy world. Only one planet, but that single area is going to be gigantic. They literally say it right at the top of the Steam page. It's set on a fantasy planet the size of Earth. Now, clearly it's going to be procedurally generated. They admit that on their store page, but what interests me is the world is literally going to be as big as the Earth. They don't really specify, is it actually that size, or is it just really, really big? My guess is that it's actually that size, because technically, like any given Minecraft map is bigger than the planet Earth, because it just keeps going on for, I mean, not necessarily technically forever, but they're really big. Minecraft maps, you're not going to reach the end if you're walking, I don't think. And your computer might not be able to handle it even if you try. I don't know. I don't know if Light No Fire is going to be like that, or a set size. I mean, it could specifically be a certain size. Maybe then you eventually just start looping around like a sphere, like a planet even. Is it going to be designed with procedural elements, completely randomized? Right now, we don't really know this stuff. I don't even know if Hello Games even knows. Obviously, they made some big promises and walked them back in the past. I think they may have learned their lesson from that, but that doesn't mean it didn't happen. They did us right with No Man's Sky, and I think they have matured, so I don't really put that on them. I'm willing to believe them at face value on their promises, especially because the rest of the game looks about like what you would expect. A survival crafting game with an emphasis on exploration. Now, the exploration is specifically what makes it more interesting than a lot of other survival games out there. If the procedural generation is as good as the trailer makes it look, I'm prepared to be impressed, frankly. And number 8 is Star Citizen. For many, Star Citizen sounded like a dream game when its Kickstarter first launched back in 2013. It was a space game where you could seamlessly explore the universe, land on a planet, walk around wherever you wanted, and do pretty much everything. It's an incredible pitch, but the writing was on the wall from day one with their absurd assertion that the game would be delivered in just a year. We're now looking at a full decade of development that's gone on well past the original planned release date, and while there's kind of a game you can play right now, it's only got one, well, scratch that, 2 star systems. They just added a new pyro system, but it's still bigger than Earth, with each planet being about 1/8 scale compared to the real ones. They're smaller, but they're huge. The ultimate goal is to apparently add around 100 to 120 star systems, each with their own planets and moons and everything. Excuse me for being a little skeptical, because it's taken 10 years to do 2 systems out of a total of 100 or more. All still a work in progress. I guess trust the process? I don't know. It's obviously a really ambitious game, regardless of how much money they've raised. It is kind of an incomplete mess, but I guess you also have to say they've stuck with it. Maybe in 2 decades, when they add 3 more star systems, it'll be a lot better. And number 7 is Qanga, I believe is how you say it. It's a multiplayer sandbox game that really promises it all. It's a survival game, a space simulator. It's got base building, seamless exploration. The game intends to let players explore the entire solar system without any loading screens at all. It's, and I'm going to use this phrase a lot probably in this video, extremely ambitious. It's a game that has all the words you like to hear: combat, trading, building, survival, and exploration. You'd be a fool not to play it. It all does feel very promising until you start noticing stuff like create your own game servers to build communities, experiment with alternative gameplay modes, which I'm not going to say that creating your own server is something that is bad. In fact, it is a throwback to yesteryear where multiplayer couldn't be shut down. But also, from some game that some no-names are making, it does kind of sound like the developers throwing up their hands and saying, you figure it out. Now, the game is out in early access, but at time of writing doesn't sound great. It's very incomplete, full of asset source stuff and AI-generated voices and music, which when you're building your base to iterate on, fine. It's another developer with no other games to their name, so they're not really building on a base. It's a small independent team. They make a note that it is a small independent team, which is kind of Steam store code for in way over their heads. Now, the game did just come out into early access, so right now anything is possible, but if some of the reviews on Steam are to be believed, it's probably a good idea to wait a few years, see if it develops further and how. If it develops in a certain way, it could be amazing. So let's all hope that's exactly how it goes. At number 6 is Eve Frontier. If you just check out the trailers, I can imagine being intrigued by Eve Frontier. It's a spin-off of the Eve MMO, but it's more of a survival and exploration game that's going to have quote-unquote fierce, tactical, and skill-reliant combat. Like the base game, there's also going to be player organizations and large-scale conflicts. At least that's what they imply. They never explicitly say how big the game world is going to be, but safe to say it's Eve, so probably pretty big, like much larger than Earth. Yeah, it sounds interesting. However, if you actually look at the FAQ and see that tech stack is one of the main headers of the game, yeah, it's not going to be a regular game, you know, the kind you play for fun, because what are you, crazy? It's going to be a crypto game. 3 out of the 4 headers on the FAQ are about that. The actual upcoming game part is kind of a second thought compared to slamming in as many crypto buzzwords as possible. It's not for gamers, it's for investors, which is bizarre because the whole crypto game bubble mostly burst already. This is late to the party here. Maybe they should talk about AI, like mention AI. Who cares what the context is or if it makes any sense at all? Just say AI. Investors will give you money, like crypto. What? Certainly not that crypto itself is going anywhere. It's just the crypto games. It seems like that didn't work out. Now, AI is definitely going to be something that does work out. I don't know what exactly that means for the gaming world, but say it if you want money from investors. Just say AI. Maybe these guys are true believers, though, because they're talking about blockchains and tokens and smart assemblies, not because they're trying to bait the hook for suckers, because they actually believe in all that garbage, which might actually be kind of sad in this context, because, again, I have yet to see a game where those words are used that turns out to be a good game, or even really a game. And number 5 is Beyond Good and Evil 2. Okay, so the word upcoming is kind of a total fantasy here. This game isn't coming out at this point, but hey, if we all close our eyes and play pretend for just a minute, let's imagine a world where Ubisoft would actually continue development on a game far past the point where the creator of Beyond Good and Evil left the company, and they haven't had any high-profile, expensive failures to deal with. In this fictional world, Beyond Good and Evil 2 would have been, can you guess what I'm going to say? Extremely ambitious. I mean, check out this tech demo where the spaceship seamlessly travels from a giant futuristic city into space where you can see the entire planet. It was some amazing technology and promised to be something truly groundbreaking, if that's what the game was going to be. But nobody really knows what Beyond Good and Evil 2 was, because it seemed like every preview was something pretty wildly different. The sad thing is, for as mind-blowingly huge as the game looked, it's not even really what fans of the series even wanted. They wanted Jade back, going on more Legend of Zelda-inspired adventures, not a space pirate epic. I don't think I would have complained, because seriously, the pre-alpha footage looks really impressive, but none of it was ever going to come together to be a coherent game, at least not with what has happened with Ubisoft. They've never officially canceled the game. It's still apparently in development, but let's be real. It's dead in the water unless Ubisoft makes some serious changes about everything they do, I think. At number 4 is Jump Ship, a 4-player co-op that looks a little more focused than other games we've been looking at on this list. It's not about exploration or survival, just different ways to fight. From what I've seen, it's kind of a sci-fi Sea of Thieves, but with no PvP. Now, I can't find any information about just how big the world is going to be, but there's spacewalks. It shows the spaceship skimming the surface of a planet, so it looks massive, and the transition between space and planet seems to be intended to be seamless. It looks mission-based from the command panel they showed, so while there's no continuous world like in some of these other games, maybe the scale of the fights is what really appears to be massive. It's yet another game coming from a small team, but their promises are a little more realistic. It looks closer to a bigger Helldivers 2 than trying to recreate the entire universe. Of course, Helldivers 2 was made by a studio with around 100 employees, and they struggled to keep the game updated. Well, this game's currently being made by about 12 people, so my hopes for it living up to exactly what they're promising right now are a little low. That said, it's totally possible for them to make it happen, and I'm rooting for them to succeed. And while their claims are a little less wild, they're still kind of wild. Like saying they can magically insert new gameplay types in the game without telling anybody. New planets and enemies and weapons just being there without telling anybody. I mean, I don't doubt that it's possible, but a little humility goes a long way here. It's your chance to set expectations so that players will know what to expect and not be horribly disappointed if the game underdelivers, which, I mean, depending on how it goes, doesn't necessarily have to be a bad game. These are pretty big promises. If you aim low and end up way over-delivering, that's always going to work out better. And number 3 is Fragile Existence, something a little different. Fragile Existence looks like it's going to be kind of a hybrid of an RTS, a 4X, and I guess, in their words, Battlestar Galactica-like survival. From the trailers, it looks like a mix of Homeworld and a survival game, but with RTS-like planet exploration and base building. What makes it so interesting is it's all done seamlessly, where you see your ships flying around out in space while moving your guys around on a fully modeled planet. The scale is clearly exaggerated, but it's still massive. You're moving through entire solar systems, even if the journey appears to be one way, sort of like an FTL. The game's trailer's pretty impressive, and while the developers are new, the publisher is Hooded Horse, who has a pretty solid track record by picking up ambitious indies and having it work. If they're publishing it, then Fragile Existence is probably going to come out, which is more than I can say for a lot of the games on this list so far. And if they pull it off, this is a pretty cool looking game. At number 2 is Breathedge 2. The original Breathedge is, well, divisive. The humor is, let's just say, an acquired taste. Kind of, bad, like really bad. And while the sequel doesn't look funnier, per se, at least it looks a lot bigger. This game's got entire star systems to explore, with planets to find and land on, and while they're not the size of actual planets, it does sound like they're going to be quite a bit smaller. There are vehicles you can use to get around, which means they're probably pretty big in terms of explorable ground. It's still a survival game where you're doing all the usual stuff, collecting resources to build equipment, upgrade your ship, deal with aliens, the usual stuff, But now you can play co-op with a friend and actually fly your ship around. There's a true exploration element to the game that looks like it's going to be a big step up from the original. Now, it'd be nice if they made the crafting a little less grindy. It could be a great sequel. I'm not going to set expectations for the humor getting better. I don't know, but if you like the game, it's not because the humor is incredible. So if you like the sequel, I have a feeling it's going to be similar. And finally, at number 1 is Haunted Space. Now here's a space game that does look like something unique. It's your standard space game with exploration, trading, shipbuilding, dogfighting, blah, blah, blah. But you're not dealing with the usual space pirates here. Instead, the game goes full Lovecraft. It's an intriguing premise that promises gigantic boss battles and some bizarre visuals that really make it stand out from the usual space game crowd. The customizable ship looks pretty interesting too. It appears to be modular, so you can design it however you want. It's unclear just how big or even open the game is, but it'll apparently take place across multiple star systems. I doubt the planets themselves will be something you can explore, but this isn't one of those games where you can go out and walk around or anything. It's not just a linear story game, but there's simulation elements to it as well. Not a whole lot is really known about it yet, and the broken image on the Steam page doesn't fill me with a lot of confidence, but there's potential here. Sure, the cockpit view looks basically unusable in the trailers, and seriously, the console blocks like 70% of the screen. You really can't see anything, but everything else about the game looks and sounds really interesting, or at least did until some red flags started popping up, like the developer's other game on Steam being called Hell Galaxy, and it looks like the same thing as Haunted Space. Even though it's mentioned nowhere in the game's Steam page, apparently Haunted Space is going to be more multiplayer focused, even though the description makes it sound like a more story-driven game. Also, the game has some kind of crypto miner something part of it, and they've been deleting posts off the Steam forum talking about it, so it's taken a bit of a turn. Maybe they've given up on the whole crypto thing and just want to make a normal game, and that's what Hell Galaxy is going to be. But I don't know, once a developer starts going to crypto crap, any sort of trust I had for them kind of goes out the window. Again, I'm not talking about crypto in general. I'm sure there are plenty of people who have made lots of money doing that watching right now. Not going after you. I'm saying you bring crypto into games, seems like everything just turns to crap. Seriously, even if it is clean now, at any point, if a game was somehow described as play to earn, that it's just suspicious to me. So my takeaway is that, yeah, it's a bit of a minefield out there for huge games. For every real one, like Light No Fires, there's 3 sketchy ones like, well, Haunted Space. But what do you think? Leave us a comment, let us know. If you like this video, click like. If you're not subscribed, now's a great time to do so. We upload brand new videos every day of the week. Best way to see them first is, of course, a subscription, so click subscribe. Don't forget to enable notifications, and as always, we thank you very much for watching this video. I'm Falcon. You can follow me on Twitter at Falcon the Hero. We'll see you next time, right here on gameranx.